Valley of the Dolls was written in the 1960s, and somehow it perfectly explains influencer culture, burnout, and medicating yourself just to keep up appearances. Because at its core, this book isn't about pills, it's about performance. About what happens when image matters more than reality, and success demands you erase yourself to survive. We don't call them dolls anymore, but the pressure never left. The story just drops us right into this intoxicating world of post-war America. You know, the buzzing streets of New York, the dream factories of Hollywood. This whole setting shimmers with promise. It's the place where you can become someone new, where you can become a star. But what Jacqueline Susann is just so brilliant at showing is the darkness underneath all that glamour. It's a world that demands a performance, not just on a stage, but in every single moment of your life. And that right there is the question at the absolute heart of this novel. It's the one thing it just keeps coming back to, over and over again. What's the real price? What does it actually cost to get everything you think you want? The book explores this through the tangled lives of three young women, Ann Wells, Jennifer North, and Neely O'Hara. They all want different things: love, security, fame, but they all start out believing they can get it if they just play the game. What they don't realize yet is that the game is rigged, and the price is always, always higher than you think. So here's how we're gonna break this down. We're gonna follow the journeys of our three main characters: Ann, who's kind of the good girl, then Jennifer, known as the body, and finally Neely, the talent. And you'll see how each of their stories leads right back to that same central theme: the true price of ambition. All right. First up, let's talk about Ann Wells. She's kind of our way into this world, right? She shows up in New York trying to escape this super predictable, stuffy life back in New England. She's looking for something more, something real. And this is the big question the book asks through her. What does real or authentic even mean in a place that pays you to be fake? You see, what Ann wants, at least at the start, is pretty simple. True love, a little independence. She's not like the others. She's not hungry for fame or desperate for security. But her desire for a genuine connection gets put to the test. Like immediately, because the industry doesn't see her, it sees a product, it sees this beautiful, poised, intelligent woman and thinks, perfect. We can package that. And so her whole journey becomes this story of, well, slow, creeping, compromise, one little choice at a time. She falls for the Sky Lion Burke, who seems like everything she wants, but he's just unavailable. So she pivots, she finds incredible success as the Jillian girl. Then she settles into this safe, stable, but totally passionate relationship with her boss. All the while, she's the rock for her friends. But the real gut punch, the big takeaway from her story, is that last point, the stability she thought she chose, it wasn't a victory, it was a cage. A really pretty comfortable cage. You know, I think this quote really gets to the core of who Ann is. She genuinely believes in loyalty, in showing up for people. It's her best quality. But the novel is so clever because it makes you wonder, is it her loyalty basically forces her to absorb all the chaos from her friends' lives? It ties her down in this world, in the valley. Her own goodness becomes just another kind of trap. She can't stand personal. And because of that, she can't ever really be free. Okay, so that's Ann. Now let's switch gears and look at Jennifer North. And Jennifer is a whole different story. If Ann's currency is her class, Jennifer's is her body. She is just stunningly beautiful. But, and this is so important, the book never treats her beauty like a gift. No way. It's a commodity, a tool, and maybe worst of all, it's a trap with a very, very loud ticking clock. And what the book seems to be saying about human nature, or at least about being a woman back then, is that if you don't have money or the right background, your physical appearance is the only real currency you have. Your entire survival literally depends on how men see you, and that belief dictates every single choice Jennifer makes. It's not about love. It's about finding a man who can provide security. It's not about a career. It's about cashing in on her looks while she still can. So her whole story is just this downward spiral of desperation. It just keeps escalating. She's constantly pushed to marry for money. She ends up in this totally controlling, isolating marriage. Then comes the fear of aging in Hollywood, which is just brutal. So she turns to sleeping pills, to plastic surgery, anything to keep the image alive. Her one real hope, the one thing she wants that's not about her looks, is to have a child. But then she gets this devastating health news that threatens the very thing her entire identity is built on. And her final choice is just tragic. She decides it's better to not exist than to exist as anything less than perfect. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? For Jennifer, freedom isn't some lofty idea, it's cash. Money is freedom. Without it, you're a prisoner to someone else. But the terrible irony, the tragedy of her story, is that in chasing that freedom, she becomes a prisoner anyway. A prisoner of her own image, trapped in her own beautiful skin. And that brings us to our third and final character, Neely O'Hara. And Neely is a force of nature. She's not the good girl. She's not the beauty. She is pure, raw, undeniable talent. We're talking a once-in-a-generation voice, an unbelievable stage presence. But along with that talent comes this hunger, this need. And it's just as big and just as powerful. Neely is basically the embodiment of raw ambition. She fought her way up from nothing in vaudeville, and she is never going back. So the big problem the book digs into with her character is, okay, what happens when you take that kind of massive talent and you pair it with just crippling insecurity? Well, you get someone who's a genius at self-sabotage. I mean, her story is the classic rise and fall, but it's told with this really brutal honesty. She becomes a megastar, but the pressure is just crushing. She starts seeing threats everywhere. To cope, she turns to the pills. The doll's uppers to get going, downers to calm down. Her whole life becomes this public train wreck of overdoses, dramatic comebacks, and fiery collapses. The public eats it up. And the saddest part, her incredible talent, the one thing that should have saved her, ends up being the very thing that destroys her. This quote is Neely O'Hara. It's her entire philosophy in a nutshell. For her, good enough doesn't exist. There is no middle ground, no being content. There's only being on top, only being the best, only being great. And yeah, she is absolutely willing to burn her own life to the ground and anyone else's to get there. So let's just take a second and look at this, because this is where it all comes together. The book lays out these three parallel paths so clearly. Anne chases love and ends up lonely. Jennifer chases security and becomes completely dependent on the one thing that's guaranteed to fade her appearance. And Neely chases fame at any cost, and the cost is herself. They all get a version of what they wanted, but the consequence is this profound, soul-crushing loss of who they are. So, what's the big idea here? What's the thread that ties all of this together? I think it's this. The book is fundamentally about the impossible price that the world at that time demanded from women who dared to be ambitious. Each one of them is punished, in her own way, for wanting more than she was supposed to. Which leads us right to the title itself. The dolls. They aren't just pills, not really. They're a metaphor. They're the chemical solution for a problem that's actually emotional and spiritual. The dolls are how these women cope with the giant gap between the perfect life they're performing and the miserable one they're actually living. They promise control, sleep, energy, escape, but they ultimately become the prison, the final valley where all those big dreams go to die. So, really, the whole thing boils down to this. In the world Susann paints, the image of success is everything. It's way more important than the reality of the person inside being authentic. That's a liability. Your real feelings, your real needs, your real insecurities, you have to shove all that down. And the dolls, they're just the tools used to do it. You pop a pill to get on stage, pop another to fall asleep, another to lose weight. You medicate yourself into being the person the world wants you to be. And that right there is why this book, for all its melodrama and 60s glamour, still feels so chillingly relevant. We might not call them dolls anymore, but in a world driven by the curated perfection of social media, by celebrity culture, and by this constant pressure to perform our best lives, you have to ask yourself, have the stakes really changed? Or have we just found new, more sophisticated dolls to help us manage the show? If this reframed the book for you, let me know. Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially if you think the dolls look different today. And if you enjoy deep dives into misunderstood classics like this one, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. And tell me, what book should we tackle next?